imagine trying to drive a car down a highway, right? And the steering wheel just randomly disconnects from the tires for a fraction of a second.
Just completely loses the connection.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the road is totally clear. You know exactly where you want to go, but the mechanical linkage just stutters.
Right. It's terrifying just to think about.
And that unpredictable disconnect, well, that is the daily reality of ataxia. So a huge welcome to the Ataxia Comunidad. If you are navigating this journey today, this deep dive is custom tailored for you.
It really is. And we're pulling apart a very specific, almost kind of a paradox today.
Yeah, the paradox of, like, if the brain's neurological signal is fundamentally broken, why does building physical muscle matter at all?
Right, which is such a valid question. And to answer that, we're analyzing episode 4 of the educational series called La Importancia de, which translates to the importance of. And specifically, we're looking at the episode titled La Actividad Física, or physical activity.
And I really want to highlight the driving ethos behind this material. It's produced by Paco Oliva for the Ataxia Comunidad channel, and the vibe is just crystal clear.
Oh, absolutely.
The community basically operates on the belief that, well, frankly, it is time that ataxia becomes impossible to ignore.
I love that. Impossible to ignore. And what makes the source material so unprecedented is the lens it uses, you know?
Right, because Paco isn't just some researcher observing this through a clinical microscope.
Exactly. He is a fellow affected individual. So this content is lived entirely from the inside.
Yeah, it's told in the first person. It's driven by real testimonies from people who are waking up and fighting this battle every single day.
And having that first person lived in reality, I mean, it completely changes the vocabulary used to describe the condition.
It really does.
It takes the discussion away from those abstract medical theories and moves it into daily, practical survival.
Which is what we all actually need.
Yeah.
But before we get into those practical mechanics, Paco's material establishes a foundational medical reality that I think we need to slow down and just acknowledge for a second.
Right, the disclaimer part.
Yeah. As you listen to this, please keep in mind that not every person has all the symptoms we are going to discuss today.
No two cases are exactly identical.
Right. And even if you do share some of these symptoms, they don't appear with the same intensity for everybody.
But the single biological mechanism tying everything together is the incoordination of the nervous system?
Exactly. And since you already know what ataxia is, we are just going to skip the basic textbook definitions today.
We're jumping straight into the deep end of living with it.
Straight into the deep end. And real quick, if you find this deep dive helpful, please share it. Send it to anyone who might find it useful.
Yeah, definitely.
And interact with the community, you know. Head over to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're always open to new proposals and initiatives.
Always. Okay, so getting into the central thesis of this source material, it challenges a really common societal assumption.
Oh, the idea of exercise is just a bonus.
Exactly. For the general public, physical activity is often framed as this, like, healthy extra, way to lose weight or improve your cardio.
Right, like a nice to have.
But for a person with ataxia, physical activity isn't a bonus. It is a critical structural tool.
So let's go back to that car analogy for a second. If the erratic neurological signal from the brain is the bumpy, choppy road, your muscles aren't the engine.
Right.
Building physical muscle isn't going to magically pave the road and make the neurological signal smooth again.
No, it won't fix the road.
But strong muscles act like high-performance shock absorbers. They buffer those motor errors. They stabilize the joints so the violent shaking doesn't just tear the car apart.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And taking it further, if the shock absorbers are blown, the frame of the car takes the full force of every single impact.
And eventually, the frame cracks.
Exactly. And the clinical reality outlined in the text confronts this directly. Look, exercise does not cure ataxia.
Yeah, we have to be clear about that.
It does not regenerate a damaged cerebellum, and it is not going to erase the symptoms.
Right.
But even in the presence of a degenerative disease, your broader nervous system still possesses neuroplasticity.
Which is amazing, honestly.
It is. It's constantly attempting to adapt, to reorganize its neural routes, and to optimize movements through repetition.
Okay, but I want to push back on the mechanics of that adaptation for a second.
Okay, go for it.
If the root issue is the neurological signal, like if the brain's command center is sending a flawed message down the pipeline to the body, why does the physical size or strength of the muscle receiving that bad signal actually change the outcome?
That's a great question.
I mean, a strong muscle receiving a bad command is still getting a bad command, right?
It is, but the difference lies in the margin of error.
Okay.
So inside your muscle fibers, you have these microscopic sensors called muscle spindles. Think of them as the body's internal GPS trackers. They constantly ping the brain with positional data. They tell it exactly where your arm or your leg is in space at any given millisecond.
Oh, so that's proprioception.
Exactly, proprioception. A physically stronger, regularly engaged muscle sends a much richer, clearer data packet back to a struggling cerebellum.
Oh, wow. So it's basically feeding the brain better raw data to work with.
Exactly.
Wait, let me rephrase that to make sure I've got it.
Yeah.
It's essentially giving the brain's compensatory mechanisms a fighting chance.
Yes.
Because if a joint is weak, the second the neurological signal stutters, the joint just collapses instantly.
It just gives out.
But a strong muscle has the structural integrity to hold that joint stable for, like, an extra fraction of a second.
And that extra fraction of a second is literally everything.
Really? Just a fraction of a second?
Yeah, because it allows the delayed alternative neurological route to deliver its signal just in time to arrest a fall or stabilize a wobble.
Oh, I see.
That physical strength gives the body the capacity to learn those compensatory strategies in real time.
Which really highlights a harsh truth presented in the text. When a person appears to get functionally worse very quickly, it isn't always because the ataxia itself is advancing at lightning speed.
Not at all. Often, a massive percentage of that functional decline is actually secondary deterioration.
Secondary stuff.
Yeah, it's the loss of muscle mass, the stiffening of joints, cardiovascular deconditioning.
And the source material actually delivers a devastating summary of this phenomenon. It says, ataxia already takes away coordination. Sedentarism on top of that takes away capacity.
It's a brutal quote, but so true. You are stacking a secondary physical deficit directly on top of a primary neurological one.
But you know, that physical buffer only works if a person actually keeps moving. And the source highlights a massive, often invisible psychological roadblock that just stops movement in its tracks.
Fear.
Yes, fear. The biggest enemy isn't always the ataxia itself, it's the sheer terror of falling, which, by the way, is a very real physical danger.
Absolutely.
It's the exhaustion of trying to force a movement that used to be automatic. And honestly, it's the fear of looking ridiculous in public.
And the biological consequence of succumbing to that fear is just tragic.
What happens?
Well, when you stop moving to protect yourself from falling or from social embarrassment, your brain is ruthlessly efficient.
Okay.
It recognizes that those neural pathways for movement are no longer being utilized, so it just stops sending resources to them.
Oh, wow. So the deterioration actually accelerates.
Exponentially. You lose strength, which severely compromises your balance, which spikes your insecurity, causing you to move even less.
Right.
It becomes this vicious, accelerating cycle of biological shutdown.
Which means breaking that cycle requires navigating an incredibly delicate physical line, specifically when it comes to fatigue.
Yes, fatigue is the tricky part.
Because that whole no pain, no gain mentality of traditional gym culture, it is actively dangerous here.
It really is.
Overexerting yourself can temporarily but severely worsen your neurological symptoms.
Exactly. The training must be intelligent, it must be regular, and most importantly, it has to be sustainable.
Right, you're not trying to become an Olympic powerlifter.
No. The goal is to maintain joint mobility and avoid rigidity, not to max out a heart rate monitor. The text suggests things like functional core work, adapted walking, cycling, or working in a pool.
Oh, a pool is great because the water provides resistance without the same fall risk.
Exactly.
But implementing this requires a massive mindset shift. So if you are listening right now and you've had to navigate this exact tightrope, please head over to the Ataxia Comunidad Instagram or Facebook page.
Yeah, we really want to hear from you.
Share how you personally balance pushing your physical limits with managing that intense fatigue. Your specific routine or strategy might be the exact blueprint someone else in the community desperately needs today.
That's so true. Sharing those strategies is vital because managing that daily energy gets exponentially harder as the condition advances.
Right.
Which brings up a critical transition point in Paco Oliva's material. What happens when mobility severely decreases, specifically regarding the transition to a wheelchair?
Man, there is such a pervasive societal assumption about this. It's a myth, really, that if someone uses a wheelchair, there is very little left to be done physically.
Yes, that is such a harmful misconception.
The assumption is that the physical battle is essentially over. But Paco's text completely dismantles this, doesn't it?
It shatters it entirely. Think of the body in a wheelchair like a house that has been locked up for the winter.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The chair is simply the foundation, but you still have to run the plumbing and the electricity inside the house.
Right.
If you don't keep the pipes heated, meaning your circulation, your core musculature, they will literally freeze and burst.
Oh, that's a powerful image.
The text states bluntly that a wheelchair is a tool for mobility. It is not a pause button on your biology.
No, you still possess the circulatory system, you have respiration, and joints that desperately require stimulation.
Exactly. The goals of physical activity simply undergo a radical shift at this stage.
Right, you are no longer training for a marathon or trying to return to previous normalcy.
The objective becomes entirely about conserving function and preventing painful contractures.
It's like muscle shortening and stiffening.
Yeah. You are fighting to maintain the physical ability to perform transfers, like moving safely from a bed to the chair. And the text provides highly specific areas of focus for this stage.
Yeah, core strength is highlighted as absolutely paramount.
Crucial.
Because if the legs are no longer bearing the primary weight of movement, your core becomes the absolute center of gravity.
Without robust core strength, you literally cannot stabilize your trunk while sitting.
And if you can't do that,
And then you cannot effectively use your arms for daily autonomy. You know, things like eating, brushing your teeth, dressing yourself.
right, the core is basically the anchor that allows the upper extremities to function at all.
Exactly.
The source also dives into something that many people might not even classify as exercise respiratory work,
Oh, yes.
because breathing is actually a muscular action.
It is a highly demanding muscular action. Actively training your respiratory capacity improves air control
And why is that so important for ataxia?
because it significantly mitigates the intense, overwhelming fatigue many affected individuals experience simply from holding a conversation.
Wait, really? Just talking can cause that much fatigue?
Yes, because the lack of coordination affects the diaphragm and vocal cords too, so respiratory exercise is huge.
That makes total sense. Now, the physical mechanics of staying active in a wheelchair are clear, but the source material introduces a social dynamic that actively undermines all this work.
Right, the danger of infantilization.
It's just a heartbreaking reality. You have these well-meaning family members or friends, and they're watching a person struggle to, say, button a shirt or reach for a glass.
And their instinct is to jump in.
Exactly. They immediately step in with, oh, leave it. I'll do it for you. Don't strain yourself.
And while the intention is usually rooted in love, the biological result of doing that is incredibly damaging.
Yeah. The source is adamant. Helping a person is not completely substituting them.
Exactly.
So let's break down the actual mechanism of why that substitution is so neurologically dangerous.
It comes back to the ruthless efficiency of the brain we talked about earlier and something called synaptic pruning.
Okay, synaptic pruning.
When you attempt a difficult movement, your brain is actively engaged in problem solving. It is mapping the body, firing signals, and receiving the sensory friction of that struggle.
The sensory friction.
Yeah. But when someone else moves your arm for you, your brain does not receive that friction.
Because you didn't do the work.
Exactly. And without the struggle, the brain assumes that specific neural pathway is obsolete, so it begins to prune it.
It just cuts it off.
Yeah. Overhelping literally disconnects the patient's mind from their body at an accelerated rate.
That is wild.
Mm.
Which means every single time you attempt the movement, even if it is agonizingly slow or imperfect, you are keeping the lights on in that neural pathway.
You are.
It really frames physical activity as a continuous vital dialogue. Every time you stretch a resistance band while seated or practice a breathing technique, you are actively speaking to your nervous system.
You're sending a message.
You are telling it, hey, we are still here. We are still connected.
And the text explicitly views movement as the language used to communicate that connection.
I love that.
And that continuous dialogue provides an immense, often undervalued psychological armor.
It's so much more than physical.
Right. Society frequently looks at physical therapy in advanced stages and questions the point, assuming that if walking isn't the goal, well, then there is no goal.
But adapted activity becomes this profound act of psychological defiance.
Yes, defiance.
It actively combats those creeping, heavy feelings of uselessness, passivity, and depression. It serves as a daily physical reminder that you still have a body, you still have capacity, and you are not just a passive vessel for an illness.
Because the emotional weight of society's assumptions is crushing. When someone transitions to a wheelchair, the outside world often automatically assumes they have lost all capability.
Right.
So fighting back against that narrative through deliberate adapted movement, I mean, that is a fierce reclamation of human dignity.
And the source material includes 2 incredibly moving testimonies from affected individuals that capture this exact sentiment.
They're so powerful.
One person shared, I lost the ability to walk, not the ability to keep fighting.
Wow.
And another stated, I don't just train the body, I train the feeling that I still can.
Training the feeling that you still can. I mean, that single sentence distills the true value of movement more effectively than any clinical data point ever will.
It really does. So if you have found a unique workaround to adapt your own movement, whether it's a specific way you anchor a resistance band, an assisted pool exercise, or just a daily mobility stretch, jump into the YouTube comments of this deep dive.
Please do.
The collective ingenuity of the Ataxia Comunidad is staggering, and your specific adaptation could be exactly what another member needs to see today to realize that they still can, too.
Absolutely. And as we synthesize the core message from Paco Oliva's work today, the ultimate takeaway here is a shift in purpose.
Right.
Physical activity is not deployed to beat or cure ataxia. It is utilized to conserve your existing capacities.
To fiercely expand that functional margin of error we talked about.
Yes, and to delay the secondary loss of muscle and cardiovascular conditioning.
And the necessity for that activity, it never vanishes, right? Even in the most advanced stages of the disease.
Never.
It simply transforms its shape. It evolves from walking to the core stabilization, respiratory control, and joint mobility retention. But throughout every single stage, the act of moving represents autonomy and health.
The source material leaves us for an incredibly powerful summary of this entire mission, which is physical activity doesn't eliminate ataxia, but it can prevent the body from giving up before the brain does.
Prevent the body from giving up before the brain does. That is just wow. To the Ataxia Comunidad, thank you so much for allowing us to explore this lived experience material.
That's been an honor, really.
The benefit of belonging to a community like this, where hard truths are shared and real-world adaptable solutions are freely given, is just immeasurable.
It really is.
It stands as absolute proof that no matter what stage of this journey you find yourself in, you do not have to live this alone. We are always open to new proposals and initiatives, so keep interacting, keep sharing on YouTube and Facebook, and just keep pushing forward.
Because the knowledge shared by those living the reality, that is the most potent tool available.
Absolutely. And as you carry these insights into your day, I want you to consider this final thought. We've spent this whole deep dive exploring how the brain desperately tries to adapt to a failing body through neuroplasticity and proprioception. Right. But looking toward the horizon, consider how future wearable technologies, or maybe soft robotics, or even subtle exoskeleton supports, might one day act as a bridge for these flawed neurological signals.
Oh, that's fascinating.
If your physical muscle is the critical shock absorber today, what kind of technological steering wheel might be available to translate those signals for you tomorrow? Something to think about. Until next time, take care.